Hello guys, welcome back to Photographics Academy. All right, so this is going to be a very interesting one. I'm so excited about what we're going to be creating in this video because it's going to be mind-blowing and extremely beautiful. So what we're going to be creating in this one is I will try to place this lady on this backdrop. Yeah, I know this has been trending for quite a long time now, and as a beginner photographer, it might cost a lot to be able to set that up in your studio, but the good news is, in this video, I'm going to be showing you that if you have just gray, yeah, all you need is just a gray backdrop, and you're going to be reproducing this particular kind of backgrounds in your own studio without even having to build it on site. Of course, if you have the funding to build it, it is most beautiful because of the flexibility is going to give you, but I'm talking to those that work on tight budget. All right, so what is the first thing you need to do if you want to place your image on that backdrop? It's very simple. You need to first of all determine the size you want your image to be and the size you want the backdrop to be. And you're going to work within the confines of the provision of Photoshop, depending on the one you are using. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop, and I need it to be, social media size. So I'm going to be cropping the image. Yeah, just give it some headroom. Very important, because we have some space in the background. There are stuff we want to retain. So make sure you give your image some headroom. Then make sure your content aware is turned on so that Photoshop will automatically fill the borders you will be having in the image or the excesses. Yeah, beautiful. So the second step to take, of course, you guessed it right, is to separate your image from your background. Very important, because you might want to be using your background later or restoring stuff later, and you do not want to be going through this process again. So a lot of people would advise you use what is it called, layer masking, but I have found this particular procedure very effective, especially when it comes to restoring your shadows. So what I would prefer to do is to go to select inverse. All right, so the first thing we need to do, or the second thing we need to do, is to just quickly select inverse. So once you select inverse, it gives you the opportunity to now separate your object from your background, and it's a little bit easier to work from that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a duplicate of my background layer. Right click and go to layer via cut. So this allows me to have my background on a separate layer and have my object on a separate layer. So if you have all the time, you can fill up that space and be doing what you are doing, but we wouldn't be needing that space, so there's no need filling it up. We'll just be working with it like that. So make sure that your object layer is above every other layer. Now you have finally finished preparing your objects for the background swapping you will be bringing. Yeah, so the next thing to do is to go to your background and repeat few same processes, which is cropping, yeah, so that the size can match, and also give it a little space. So I know you'll be wondering, why am I stretching from one side? So what we're going to be using is content aware, and content aware works better in repeated patterns. If we go over this area, we'll have a lot of things that I'm sure Photoshop will not be able to recognize clearly, and we're going to have wrong feelings over there. But because here I already have repeated patterns, is a wall, the window is repeated, the floor is repeated, it's going to give us a more consistent result, using content aware fill for that area. You see, so the windows, we are just continued, the floor was just continued, although we have little working movement here, but nobody will actually notice. So I'm going to unlock the layer, drag it over, place it on our image, and here is it, almost looking fitted. So the next thing to do is, of course, scaling in. Yes, so you need to scale it in, place it where you need it to be. Beautiful. So because we're not going to be creating, excuse me, my auto select is on. All right, so because we're not going to be creating reflection for her on the mirror behind her, we wouldn't place her in such a way that we need to have a reflection on the mirror, so her back can serve as a blocking or as a flag for that mirror. She can just use her back and cover it. Beautiful. So we'll have this here, scale in a little bit. Okay, so press enter. No, all right, so press enter. Now, the next thing to do is to blend it in. I feel I'm losing my background. The lights over there, I'm not getting them. Very good. Aha, this looks better. Okay, so the next thing to do is to blend this object into this background. Yeah, to make it look like she's actually standing there. So what do we do? The first thing we need to check is the luminosity level. Is she brighter than the background or is she darker than the background? Right? To check that, we'll play our white. We'll just bring in our black and white adjustment layer. So looking at it now, you could easily tell that her luminosity level is lower than that of the background. So what do? We darken the background. Instead of brightening her, we bring the background down. Let me just create curves there so that it will give us flexibility of control. So you just bring it down until they are almost matching. Good, the luminosity is matching now. So the moment I remove this, you notice that she's looking like she actually stood there to take that picture. Unlike when everywhere was just, bright and bold and all of that. Now, the next thing to do is to mimic the reflection on the floor. So if you look at this floor, you notice everything here have their reflection showing on the floor. So our object needs to also have our reflection showing on the floor. So I'm going to make a duplicate of our model. Press Ctrl T, right click and go to flip vertically so that she goes upside down. Then we'll just drag her all the way down and place her clothes right here where we'll get our reflection created. Press enter. Right? Good. Okay, so let's try flipping horizontally. Let's see if we'll get the dress touching each other where we want it to be. Oh, beautiful. This works better. So press enter. Because it's a reflection, of course, we are changing the blend mode to anything that will allow us still see it under there, but faded. So we are working with soft light. Yeah. I'm going to desaturate it a little bit because I feel it's too reddish. Press enter. Then reduce the opacity. Good. That is all you need to do. Reduce the opacity. So the reflection is there, very, very obvious and visible, but not distracting. Not distracting. All right, so moving forward, the next thing we need to do is to check if we need to restore our shadows, which I think we need to do. And of course, we didn't change the blend mode of our background, so I'm going to be changing the blend mode to overlay. So working with it in overlay now, we are noticing that our background is losing luminosity. So we can as well turn this off and be able to check. All right, so looking at this now, I'm going to maintain my normal. So there's no need changing the blend mode. Everything is working perfectly. So what we need to do is to create artificial shadow for her. So initially, changing the blend mode would have given us our shadows back, but because the blend mode is not working, we are going to try to get our shadows back, the original shadows back, without having to change the blend mode. So to do that, I'm going to make a duplicate of my background, the original background, drag it all the way in between the object and the background. Keep it here, then change the blend mode to, any other blend mode that allows you to see the shadow, but still show you the background. So let's check. Does this give us the shadow we want? Yes, it does. It does give us the shadow we want. So what we're going to do is that we're going to hold our alternate and create a mask for it and use the brush to just paint all over the floor. Since the floor won't be off, if it's slightly darker, it will give us that dimension we are looking for. So we'll just, paint it over the floor. And once we have it over the floor, we have, a little bit of our original shadows restored. See the way it just brought it down. Everything is looking balanced. We can even decide to darken it down to create more dimension for us. Now I'm beginning to not like this one we painted over here. So we'll get it off. And the last but not the least thing we need to do, or rather not necessarily the last thing, is to create one more global color grading. Yeah. Or two more. Let's use our gradient map. Very simple. Change it to noise. Make sure this is kept at 30. Change your blend mode to soft lights. not overly soft light. Reduce it a bit, just a bit, so you can see the effect, and go and start randomizing until you get a color grading that works for you. This is actually beautiful, but let's just keep going. This is beautiful. I'll stick to this, but of course we'll tone it down. Bring it down. Good. Bring it down. Then go to your color lookups. Find a complementing color lookup. I need a lot of contrast now. This won't be bad. I actually like this, so just bring it down a bit. So now the problem or the major issue is that we don't know what we're looking at. Everything is just busy here and there. So all we're going to do is I will try to create depth using lightning. So staying on our background, I'm going to pick up my rectangular marquee tool and make a selection of everything that is behind her. Then go to my curves adjustment layer and just bring it down like this. Beautiful. Not like that, like this. So just tacking it down so that the attention will go to the lily. But looking at what we're having here, it's looking too distracting. So first of all, feather the masking so that transition looks very soft. Then secondly, we might need to change the blend mode to luminosity. But I think I actually like the saturated look it had on the normal. But it becomes a bit more distracting because it's taking away the attention from the lady. So we'll stick with luminosity. So this is the before. This is the after. So all of a sudden, she's now the attention. Another thing we can do is to just brighten her skin up a little bit. Her skin, not her entire image, just her skin. So we'll just paint it over her. So the idea is to just bring the attention to the lady. And the lady will have the attention on her. So the last thing we'll do is to go to our camera raw and add some vignetting effects. So I just did Ctrl-Shift-Alternate-E to create a stamp visible layer. Then go to my camera raw filter all the way down to effect. Then of course, pull in our vignetting. Drag it a little bit to the midpoint. Make it a bit smaller. Good. Then we can as well just punch in the saturation a little bit. I'm punching the vibrance a little bit. And we are good to go. Beautiful. So let me show you. This is the overall before and the after. This is the before. This is the after. Thank you so much for watching this amazing video. Do make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe, turn on your notification bell to get notified every single time we'll drop a new video. Until then, see you on the next one.